You know that title wasn't no bait. Look at this. Look at this screen right here and tell me I can still be saved. Bro, I'm like far lands in Minecraft gone. Like Gone, the 2012 American thriller starring Amanda Seyfried. I'm in another galaxy right now. You cannot fix my ass. I've seen a lot of Duchess guides here on this platform, and if I'm being brutally honest, most of them aren't that good. Some of them brush over the basics and talk about build knowledge and whatnot, but aren't as comprehensive as I feel like they should be, and a few of them are even misleading enough to be considered case studies in comedy. Like Genghis Khan giving a TED talk about maintaining a healthy marriage kind of comedy. So this is me staking my claim. I've thrown hands in this bitch for over 600 hours, and this is the Duchess guide of all time.
Seekers of redemption will sway this mortality.
This guide will be compartmentalized into 5 principal bullet points: clearing misinformation, a comprehensive relic effect guide that combs through her best, worst, and decent relic buffs, her 2 most effective playstyles, and choosing some example relics that feed into them properly, and then some advanced tactics with both Restage and Finale. I'm going to be throwing a lot of different relic builds around, but I'm going to try to make it to where at least 2 of them are guaranteed relics on any given setup. That way you don't have to worry about fishing for god relics outside of the 1 or 2 relics you're probably already attached to. This guy did the thumbnail, this guy did the montage, and Luna is my lovely editor. Subscribe to all 3 of them, or as God is my witness, you will wake up tomorrow with your head sewn to the carpet. Did you do it yet? Bitch, you think I'm playing? Alright, let's get this money. Oh, fuck. Where to start with this one? Jesus Christ. Starting with the single most confusing bit of misleading info around the Duchess character, which is her preferred weapon type. She likes daggers. Daggers suck. The hell's up with that shit? Well, there's actually a couple reasons the game tries to steer you in this direction. You see, every Duchess main encounters the inevitable fork in the road where they must choose between one of 2 playstyles. Either become a sorcery build that excels in casting and ranged combat, or become the Ghost of Limveld that uses status as a vehicle into the closest thing you'll ever get to Dishonored 3. I'm gonna pick apart the casting playstyle here in just a minute, but right now I want to put some focus on her melee playstyle because that's the one that's a bit more obscure. And I think the reason it's so obscure is because the levels of complexity is just far greater versus waving a broomstick around and killing bitches with green rocks. The Duchess has a very strange split when it comes to her stats, and I think it's really easy to fall into the trap of, oh, that just means she doesn't have a specialty, when a more accurate framing of her ability set is, oh, she's actually just good at everything. And once you learn how her abilities and relic effects play off of each other, that's when you realize her stat spread isn't this vague restriction of proficiency, but a necessary encumbrance that keeps her from being the stupidest fucking character in the game. Being able to use sorceries with marginally less efficiency doesn't make her a budget recluse because casting is not her only proficiency. She has a chain dodge, her backstep has iframes, she uses weapons with innately higher critical damage. It's easy to say there's no point picking Duchess since the Recluse exists, but again, I think a more honest way of framing this would just be, if Duchess did have an S in intelligence, absolutely nobody would play this bitch. And the Recluse still gets an S in both caster stats anyway, so she has no business pocket watching your ass for catalysts when she has the monopoly over the casting playstyle that she does. Like, okay. Duchess mains, do not let the Recluse gatekeep all the good shit from you, okay? Learn how to stick up for yourself. Just sprint right to the top of that encampment and take both the Staves without even looking at them. Don't be afraid to tell these Recluse mains out here they gotta learn who they playing with. By the way, just as a quick aside here, Recluse mains might hold this video against me for a while, because I am constantly at odds with Recluses in my games fighting over equipment and shit, so I'm gonna be taking some fat dumps on Recluse mains during this video, so just prepare yourself for it. Let's continue on here and examine the alternate attack chain when using daggers as Duchess, since it is her signature weapon after all. It's very comfortable to use, the spacing is very easy to get behind, and the alternate animations make it one of her fastest weapons in which to proc status attack bonuses like those found on Knight of Miasma, getting your FP returned by using a successive restoration buff, and taking advantage of her passive that consumes less stamina when dodging or attacking. A lot of the best weapons for Duchess are capable of doing this. Curved swords, straight swords, fists, claws, twin blades, all are good at proccing these bonuses. Twin blades are actually one of her best weapon classes because the amount of attacks in a two-handed attack chain make it really easy to deal status and trigger successive attack effects. Bonus points if you're using the Godskin Peeler's alternate charged R2. And make no mistake here, daggers are still her best weapon, but not for this reason. The reason Duchess excels with daggers is because of their freakishly high critical modifiers. This character is scarily good at putting to work. Only 5 of the 13 daggers have critical modifiers of 100, and the rest measure anywhere between 110 and 140, Misericord being the highest. The Duchess's starting armament also receives a critical modifier of 130. This directly synergizes with a lot of the critical-centric relic effects and bonuses you can receive. Her green relic you get from the Sigil vendor, both Baron relics, and various talismans and boss rewards that enhance or provide a secondary bonus to critical attacks, like FP restoration. Duchess also comes with a chain dodge that allows you to extend the period of invulnerability given to you when evading attacks, and the unique ability to continue attack chains in between dodges when wielding a single dagger. Not power stancing, but either one-handing or two-handing a single dagger. This allows you to do 2 things as Duchess. 1, literally not get hit by fucking anything ever, and 2, become pretty adept at dealing status despite her low arcane. That Pocketwatch ain't just for big damage. You can use that for status, poise breaking, whatever best fits a given situation. I'm going to teach you all about those situations much later on in the video, but I think the only point I want to spotlight as hard as I can right now is the Duchess is perfectly capable of afflicting status, no matter what her arcane is. And with a good relic setup, you can turn decent buildup into holy shit, I can't believe that procced. Most of that comes with her specific relic effect that reprises successive dagger attacks when a chain is completed, and that takes into account both status and poise damage in addition to regular damage. One last bit of clarification and then we'll get into the good shit. This involves the Duchess's unique backstep. It has 6 frames. Unlocking the improved dodging window gives it 7 frames. Wow. Damn, well, don't be afraid to make it too good or anything. If you're confident enough in your timing, you can absolutely aura farm the shit out of Crucible Knights and anything with a sword, because you also have the advantage of either continuing your current attack chain or just taking the backstep into a running attack. But those always feel weird to me because her running attacks with a dagger travel so much distance that using backstep as a setup for it might just lead to you overshooting the attack and smacking the air. Parrying after a backstep can be tricky, but it's good versus Banished Knights, Crucible Knights, again, just any regular dude with a sword. Basically what you do is you just go into a backstep and then immediately start walking forward, because walking forward cancels the animation recovery, and then as soon as you start actually moving forward, just parry. If you do it without moving forward, you have to like wait a full second for the animation to actually end before the parry gets thrown out, which is kind of dumb. Like, it's very dumb actually. You can walk, dodge, attack straight out of it, so I don't know why this is any different. Maybe it's tied to weapon skills in general, so you can't like backstep and then just spam Taker's Flames and shit. That I understand, but like a parry? Like, what the fuck? The Relics and Relic Effect section of this overview will have to be the longest chapter in the video for everything to be explained properly, because it's difficult to talk about individual relic effects, especially character-specific effects, without extending that explanation into synergies, stackability, different playstyles, so on and so forth. So the lines do get blurred here a bit, so I'm probably gonna repeat some points a couple times, and you're completely fine with that. I am going to be speaking very matter-of-factly in this video about a lot of things, like more so than usual. Saying you need things for certain other things to work, actively encouraging or discouraging certain setups due to what the data in the game tells you, stuff like that. That doesn't mean I'm going to think you're beyond help if you try to run Duchess with pot-throwing relics and a hammer. If you feel like the way you play Duchess works, don't let me tell you to change it. But you clicked on a video with the words Duchess and Guide in the title, so I am assuming you do not want to hear that. Dagger attack power. Once again, using her proficiency with daggers as a starting point, dagger attack power I think measures up to be one of her worst relic effects, and this boost being found on one of her remembrance relics I think is just kinda silly, because the attack power of a dagger is one of the last things you should be worrying about if you're playing Duchess. Don't get me wrong, a lot of benefits come with using daggers, such as less stamina consumption, taking advantage of weapon affinity effects since they're flat damage boosts, and reprising dagger chains to deal steal status, but weapon attack power bonuses only give you a 6% boost versus the 15 or 20% boost given by critical attack bonuses, such as those seen on the Baron relics. Setting yourself up for a dagger-centric build requires you to fully commit to the bit. Like, you need dagger chain reprisal, you need to be inflicting a status. You probably need Knight of Miasma thrown in there somewhere. If you really want to build like this to contend with her best sorcery and critical builds, you're gonna need all of that on top of a few very lucky relic pulls. It's a lot of intensive resource allocation for a build that just doesn't feel as efficient as it should. If you're going the melee route, you'd be more comfortable feeding that into a critical attack build because of the enhanced critical modifiers found on most daggers. Silenced footsteps after critical from behind. Building around critical hits comes packaged with the miserable revelation that even character-specific effects tailored towards critical hits feel like they have to be forced to work. Silencing footsteps after a backstab gives a heavy insinuation that I'm using critical attacks to take care of trash mobs, and that's really not something you should be doing. Like, I cannot think of a bigger waste of time. I feel like this would be better if the silenced footsteps procced up on criticals in general, which would open up a window for parrying and stance breaking, but this still leaves the effect in a vulnerable spot because it's forced to contend with other relics like Knight of Miasma, which conceals your character entirely when frostbite happens in your vicinity. I understand that stealth is conducive to landing criticals, but when considering bosses specifically, there is a very, very limited pool of encounters where backstabbing actually works, and the bosses that are susceptible to backstabs aren't usually the ones I'm having trouble taking down anyways. Banished Knights, Red Mains, Royal Army, Black Knife, the fucking Lord Sworn Captain? Critical attacks also take time to perform, which can reduce the efficiency of her relic effect that gives her attack stacks during her ult, which is the Duchess's single most easily abusable relic boost. If you're clearing out Banished Knights in the castle or something, I could see this being useful, but I think a stealth setup feels much more comfortable when it's either plugging resources into the ultimate gauge, or using the Miasma relic to conceal your character when proccing status. The green relic you purchase from the sigil shop also comes with a 15% critical bonus and a 7.5% skill cooldown reduction, and I'd say those two effects are more than worth it considering it's a guaranteed relic. But this particular effect by itself really needs a lot of heavy lifting from its neighboring relics, on top of some divine prophecy-ass boss RNG. Dexterity and Intelligence. We're really digging deep here, boys. I think the only relic boost that might be even worse than dagger attack power is the general stat improvements to Dexterity and Intelligence. Character stat boosts are probably the worst way to enhance overall damage in the game. If you're hunting for stat improvements, you're way better off using for something that involves your 3 core stats, and unless the character you're playing as actually scales with that specific stat, I just can't find it in myself to recommend these improvements, knowing that effect slot could be going to like a character-specific boost, or a 12% sorcery boost, or a 20% critical attack boost, or just something more useful. Intelligence +3 doesn't even increase general sorcery damage by 3%. Why does a +3 bonus to intelligence take Night Comet from 251 to 258? There must be only one bed in this hotel room because I feel like I'm getting fucked here. Critical hits earn runes. Wow, this is shit. A flat, unstackable 300 runes for critical hits, and they thought this was worth throwing on Dark Knight of the Baron. Every guaranteed relic that has this on might as well just have an empty slot. Imagine gambling for god relics and you get a small with this effect on it. It would be the equivalent of playing slots at a casino and the machine grows a crane with a boot on it and just like kicks your balls into your neck like a Looney Tunes cartoon. I'm not even spending any more time on this one. This shit is like statewide expulsion levels of below the standard. The Blessed Iron Coin. There is yet another step down the decaying ladder into the well of ineptitude and disappointment, and that is the Duchess's remembrance relic, the Blessed Iron Coin. The Blessed Iron Coin would be a masterclass in comedic storytelling if it weren't so tantalizingly good at exactly one thing, which is boosting attack power during your ultimate. If you ever see this bonus right here on any relic, you better favorite that shit and never let go of it. It is the single most abusable relic effect the Duchess can access, only for it to be held captive by 2 of the stupidest, most non-essential buffs it could have possibly found as lab partners. This relic is using the line separating comedy and tragedy as dental floss. As soon as, and I mean the second, you roll a relic with this effect on it that comes with anything else, this iron coin should become a forgotten memory. Ultimate Art Gauge. Ultimate Charge is good on Duchess because it's good on everybody. It's Ultimate Charge, and one of the game's only stackable relic effects that don't involve player stats or just a general elemental damage boost. You don't get this from talismans or weapon passives, it's just less time for your ult to charge, which is both uncommon and extremely powerful on, well, anybody. I'm trying really hard not to segue this paragraph into what's functionally an ultimate guide for Duchess because that's a really easy avenue to take after telling you how valuable her ult is, but just know that's gonna come later. And if you aren't building for anything specific, then ultimate art gauge bonuses are just something you should constantly be searching for no matter what. Magic attack power. Magic attack power and elemental attack power boosts in general are only slightly better than weapon specific attack power boosts. A +2 elemental attack boost only improves damage of that element by 6.5%. It's not that good by themselves, but they can stack for a little over 20.8% additional damage in total for that element. And this can get pretty stupid on caster builds because almost every weapon in the game has some awkward damage split that has it dealing both physical and a type of elemental damage, but casters usually don't have to worry about this problem. So finding a full 3 relics that support magic attack power all at once is probably going to take you a long while because the only guaranteed relic you get from shops with this buff is the green relic from the Sovereign Sigil shop, which is a very strong relic for caster Duchess, don't get it twisted, but the bonus is only the basic +0 bonus, which gets you 4.5%. I don't think having +2s in every single attack power boost is really that necessary, since a +0 effect on all 3 relics still equal out to a little over 14%, which is basically just a Scorpion Talisman without the defense debuff. These can be worth it, but only if you've landed on a build with this effect on every relic. Improved Sorceries. The improved sorcery subtype relic effects are massive bonuses to a certain subtype of spells. 12% on these hoes, and yes, they can stack. These buffs can be really effective if you choose a sorcery class with a lot of different spells in it, like Glint Blade or Gravity Sorceries, but I tend to fish for relics with either those two or a Crystallion bonus. The Crystallion bonus only improves 3 spells in total, but the reason this is so kick-ass is because having 2 separate blue stabs that each spawn with Shattering Crystal as the top spell is the main reason why that specific sorcery feels like it's dropped so often. And it helps that Shattering Crystal is also a 10 gauge Remington with nuclear stopping power, so 12% more of that shit is absolutely something you want. Max FP with 3 staves, and improved attack power with 3 daggers. I'm grouping these together because I actually want to sit down and pit these two against each other because one isn't as good as people think it is, and the other has a slightly misleading description. Fucking plot twist of the decade, yeah, I'm sure. Okay, starting with the weapon related buff, having 3 daggers equipped at any given time gives you a 10% attack boost. If you're a melee or a crit centric build, this might be useful if you're able to stack it with a bunch of critical hit bonuses on the same build, but this is not a boost you'll find on any guaranteed relics, and even if you did, it would have to compete with the incredibly convenient benefit of getting that same 10% attack boost just by switching weapons, which is the effect found on Knight of the Lord. I tend not to go for this one because I'd rather just have critical boosts thrown in there somewhere because those bitches give you 15 and 20% for the +1. Having 3 staves equipped with this relic effect in your build actually doesn't provide an increase to your max FP in the same way as a Cerulean Medallion or a relic effect that actually increases your max FP. It's not a percentage based buff, it just gives you 10 mind. And at level 15, this roughly translates to around 28% more FP. Holy shit. Use that guaranteed relic in the sigil shop and put it on your Duchess. Recluse don't need that shit. And if she does, then tell me to give a fuck. Then again, if you're like me and you're used to ransacking the belongings of innocent perfumers just for a good passive, you might not care what your 6 slots look like, as long as everything's feeding into sorcery damage or something. But I've never seen any Duchess guide give an accurate explanation of what this effect actually does, and I feel like it should be considered way more, because that boost is pretty insane at level 15, so there you go. Knight of the Miasma, and attack power up when facing status afflicted enemies. I'm lumping these in together too, since Status Duchess is kinda underrated, and the Miasma relic already has this buff anyways. This can be a goated top shelf relic effect, but only if your entire build also facilitates the status you're afflicting. Pairing Miasma with a relic that gives your starting armament frost buildup, for instance, is going to further help that boost along. And if you have another relic that also gives you the Dagger Chain Reprisal, then that's gonna be even better. But we're already running into a huge problem with this one, which is that it is ridiculous ridiculously easy to pigeonhole yourself into a very particular playstyle that's heavily dependent on RNG. Playing Crater mitigates most of this RNG here, because then you can just +3 your starting armament. But in any other case, if you throw these on and queue up and you don't see any camps with the right status icon next to it, this entire strategy is literally fucked before it even hits the ground. And I really don't like builds with that as a weakness. I also noticed some potentially unused effects that further enhance the attack power boost by 16%, and then another parameter below that one that increases it by 20. This can be seen on all status-related attack boosts. Improved skill attack power. Improved skill attack power takes your restage value from 50% to 60%, and that includes poise damage and status. Unfortunately, these can't stack. Not a lot of these unique effects do stack with each other unless they're just straightforward damage boosts, and having this stack up with the Dagger Reprisal event means the damage you do with Restage won't even matter, because the Reprisal event always takes priority and cancels the manual Restage. Even if you restage before the final attack in the chain. Yes, I've tried everything. I'm pissed you can't stack them too. If given the choice, I would rather just have more chances to restage damage than more restage damage, especially if it's just a 20% boost, because I just feel like having a full 3 stack of skill cooldown +3s just shaves off so much time in between restages, which ends up pulling an abusive amount of weight for just, well, everything. Field bosses, castle, Night Lord. I mean, if you can swing both, then absolutely do it, obviously, but I'm typing all this out assuming a lot of people are just tired of fishing for god relics. Successive dagger attacks trigger event reprisal. This one can be good, but the only reason I would equip this is when it's being paired with status effects like Frostbite. If you can pair it with a relic effect that also boosts attack power against a status afflicted enemy, then that's even better, so that opens up some synergy with the Miasma relics, but I feel like that's just the ceiling for this one. The reprisal effect only gives you 36% of the damage, status, and poise of your attack chain, closer to 40% if two-handed, and using it shoves you into this weird, uncomfortable box of a build that only uses daggers, while also not doing anything to boost crits. The enhanced critical modifiers on daggers is the whole point behind why critical attack buffs on Duchess are the slam dunk that they are. So having an effect that focuses not only on daggers, but a specific way to play with daggers that isn't supported by any of her best relics feels extremely inconvenient, and something I have to force into viability just because I'm trying to make the new Miasma relic work. Yeah, Everdark Caligo just got released at the time I'm writing this. Alright boys, moving into the Promised Land. These are the best relic effects for Duchess, hands down. Opinions differing from mine, not welcome, all that shit, whatever. Let's go. Stamina recovered when landing attacks. I'm throwing this one in the upper tier just because I think more people should look at it. It's probably not like top shelf, but I'm considering this a tactical signal boost. This isn't really that good for caster builds since you're going through so much stamina at once, and if you're a caster build, stamina honestly just isn't something you should be that concerned with. But you also have to remember Duchess already comes with this innate passive that consumes less stamina when dodging and attacking. So stacking this relic effect on top of that passive, barring any stamina recovery buffs you get along the way, can be diabolically good on dagger-centric builds and playstyles that involve a lot of small actions at once. I would say based on how your build is putting it to work, this relic effect would fall anywhere between high B tier and just straight up S tier. The reason this is so strong on Duchess is because the stamina received per attack is a flat value, meaning it's free real estate for daggers and twin blades, 2 for the basic +0 effect, and 3 for the +1 seen on Night of the Beast. Literally watch this shit. Like, brother, the stamina bar does not move. If your build comprises lots of skill cooldown +3s, magic attack +2s, FP restoration, and other perks that kind of obviously give you away as caster trash like myself, then having this on won't give you any huge advantage or anything, but if you're hunting for relics that facilitate crit builds, successive attack bonuses, affinity attack power, anything involving being on the front lines close enough to smell the breath of your enemies and offer them a fucking mint afterwards or some shit, I don't know. It's good as hell, man. Just try it. Defeating enemies fills the art gauge. Picking up trash is not a last resort job taken by those with no proper skill set or work experience. No. Here in Nightreign, trash duty is carried out only by the most upstanding of citizens, and the Duchess is one of them. Defeating enemies to fill up your ultimate gauge is precisely what the description says. No obscure wording or misleading info. Kill shit to charge your ultimate. That's what this effect does. And it demonstrates monstrous amounts of value in just about every area that isn't the battle against the Night Lord on day 3. It's probably my favorite relic effect to use on any character, but it's especially helpful to a Duchess because of a specific relic effect that gives her a stackable attack boost when defeating enemies while her ult is active. Defeating enemies in this way also charges the ult gauge, and R1ing like 7 crabs gives you a shitload of charge too, which is what makes the synergy between these two effects so absurdly powerful. Knight of the Baron and Dark Knight of the Baron. The regular Knight of the Baron relic gives you a 20% critical boost, which is 18% less than the Everdark variant, but in my opinion it offers much more utility in fights like stamina recovery and ultimate charge. The Everdark Baron relic gives you a 38% critical boost, but the rune acquisition buff isn't really that good since it's just a flat 300, and stamina regen is the secret ruler of time and space in games like this, so I'd much rather have that in my kit instead. 38% more critical damage is still pretty insane given that it stacks with passives, the Dagger Talisman, and a weapon's critical modifiers if it has any. I don't know, I mean both are valuable and both have their place in stealth builds, and it's just going to depend on what fits where and what other relics are giving you. Oh, and another quick aside while we're talking about crits. If you're building Duchess around crit damage, this may not always be a first priority, but definitely take a bit of time to see if you can pick up a good torch along the way, because those motherfuckers hand out more poise damage than a great sword while having a decently fast R1 chain. A charged R2 from a torch hits for 34.5 poise damage, and numbers on a weapon type this fast is nuttier than gerbil turds. In terms of what I would consider the best weapons for stance breaking, I think torches would have to be right up there with great hammers and colossal weapons. Bonus points if you can grab a ghost flame torch, because now you're dealing status as well. So if you see any guardians out here running crit builds with a ghost flame torch, then, well, now you know why. If you're looking to lean more on the melee side of combat with Duchess, having on either one of these is pretty much a necessity. Like your keys and wallet, a good Duchess main never leaves the round table without them. Dark Knight of the Wise and the old Pocketwatch. FP Restoration stacks with itself on this setup, making it really powerful when you aren't that interested in close combat and you're just using your melee weapon as a battery charger for your FP bar. This eliminates the need to hunt for Starlight Shards, so the Recluse on your team can keep them all and continue her peaceful existence of not knowing her ability gives that shit back anyways. You can either throw these on top of each other for the restoration stacks, or you can just use one of them and save the other two for potential god relics, magic attack power, skill cooldown, all the necessities. Character skill cooldown. So, restaging damage is the single feature in Duchess's ability kit that not only sets her apart from the rest of the Nightfarer roster, but puts her in a league of her own when properly optimized. From 0, it refreshes every 12 seconds as a default, and each skill cooldown +3 effect you have stacked on your relic build lowers that refresh time by 10%. Equipping 1 lowers it to 10.8 seconds, stacking 2 takes it down to 9.7, and a full 3 stack of the effect, if you can pull it, lowers it all the way down to 8.7 seconds. It's just a stupid ass keys and wallet metaphor again. Like if you're playing Duchess, you should never even consider queuing up without at least one of these somewhere in your build. It's just too important. Defeating enemies during ult ups attack power. Okay, the following knowledge I am about to impart to you comes with irreversible consequences. There is a specific relic effect that I've refrained from mentioning too much up until now, and that's because speaking its name too loudly has the power to catalyze a tectonic disaster. The relic effect is, defeating enemies while the ultimate art is active boosts attack power. It is a Duchess exclusive, and it is the single most powerful relic effect you will ever find for Duchess. This is like blessed blue dew talisman confidence I am speaking with here, okay? Like, if you think I'm wrong on this, please consider shutting the fuck up and just doing a match with this on first. Just consider the fact that I know what I'm talking about first before we start throwing shit around, alright? Because this is opening Pandora's box, gathering the Millennium artifacts, returning the Crystal Skull, and once I show you how to properly abuse this forbidden jutsu technique, you will never play Duchess the same way ever again. This is your only warning. This is a 15% attack boost that stacks multiplicatively for each enemy defeated. Each individual stack attack lasting for 30 seconds. This enemy could be a starcaller, it could be a jellyfish, it could be a fucking crab. I'm gonna lay down an example of this relic effect being used optimally, and you will almost immediately figure out for yourself why this effect is the titan that it is before I'm even done explaining it. There is a field boss here that always spawns in the lake right beside this structure to the right, usually a rise or a church, sometimes a merchant outpost, it depends. But the only thing we should concern ourselves with right now is the gathering of 7 crabs conveniently located just north of the boss here. And if you're very lucky, you'll even find a talisman scarab here, which does count as its own enemy, so that makes 8. Now, if we can, let me just go ahead and get out my calculator real quick, and we can just math our way to the final multiplier in real time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have already crossed the border into Bullshitville here with a 52% attack power buff just by killing 3 mobs. 4, 5, 6. Okay, and now Bullshitville has recognized our achievements and is throwing us a citywide charity drive. 7, 8. We have just assassinated Bullshitville's mayor and framed his family for colluding with a drug cartel. Guys, I'm just gonna be real. I don't know what this field boss would be for the specific siege you're in for this hypothetical situation. All I know is that it should be dead in 7 seconds. Now, let's turn our attention to the castle. The basement boss has 3 crabs leading up to its main intersection perpendicular to the boss, on both sides in which you approach the castle. You not only have enough time to R1 each of these 3 crabs, but the 2 crabs directly outside the south tunnel leading into the boss, and perhaps maybe a couple jellyfish. Fucking pick who you want. This is why routing knowledge is the key to everything, because with that knowledge also comes the awareness of knowing where there's trash to be picked up. The 4 demi-humans hanging around near this Everjail, for instance, or the 7 briar hags found near the gargoyle in the crater. Even 2 enemies are enough for a 32% boost in attack power for the next 30 seconds. It doesn't do anything in Nightlord battles, but what does do something in Nightlord battles is having a full 6 of purples and golds in your loadout, because that's what your inventory tends to look like when your team has spanked every single fucking boss in the seed. The amount of general buffs and perks you'll have accumulated when abusing this relic becomes so ridiculous versus a normal run without it, and I'm tired of people acting like that doesn't matter. Let's talk about how to abuse this relic effect as much as possible. So, I've devised a short brochure of trash collecting rules that help you keep your community clean and safe. First and most importantly, if you're going to structure a build around this, make sure another relic also has the effect that gives you ult charge when defeating enemies. It is extremely important that both of these effects be on your build at the same time, because a large part of why this is so busted is the cyclical behavior of defeating enemies during your ult to generate charge for your next ult. Glint Blade passive effects can also help clean up stray enemies, even if the targeting does tend to latch onto a mob that's already dead sometimes, but a little spacing and you can control where those bitches land just fine. If you don't have access to a passive Glint Blade effect, just use a nearby Rancor bush that lets you summon Vengeful Spirits. Anything to help you just kill shit quicker, because 10 seconds is really not a lot of time. I also like using a particular subgenre of sorceries that I've taken to calling Weed Killer sorceries. Just general crowd controlling tools like Shattering Crystal, Glintstone Arc, Adula's Moonblade, etc. Even if it's on a shitty staff you're not really attached to, I would still try to make it work, just because it's so easy cleaning up mobs when one of your main spells is a shotgun or a wide-sweeping ethereal toenail. The one thing I would advise not doing is going for criticals while the ultimate is active, because again, like I said, you are on a very strict timer here, and you don't want to spend that valuable time stuck in a critical animation when you could be collecting stacks. And finally, if you're not playing with randos and you're just in a Discord VC with 2 friends, this gets 10 times easier to abuse because you can build a game-winning strategy around 2 of the laziest callouts: do you have ult? And I'm killing trash. I'm genuinely afraid to talk about this relic effect and how easily you can abuse it, because if my track record remains consistent, it's almost certainly going to get patched either the day I upload this shit or a week or 2 afterwards once maintenance notices thousands of Duchess mains are suddenly 3-tapping bosses for some reason. So I would advise getting your reps in while you can, because I'm really trying hard not to sound conceited. This has happened like 5 times before, and I'm very nervous. It's not hard to tell from her stat spread that the Duchess is just as much a caster as she is a stealth person, lady, whatever. But the game really wants to push you in the direction of stealth gameplay and critical attacks, which is her entire second playstyle. These relic effects that assist in crit hunting are extremely important, and I think the reason why the game tries to give you so many relic buffs around it is because the playstyle is so flexible and multifaceted versus just standing still and spamming Night Comet and winning somehow. I don't know if spellcasting is the optimal way to play Duchess, but it's definitely the easier way to play Duchess. Caster-related effects like magic attack power, improved sorcery subtypes, FP restoration, things like that aren't found on the Duchess's signature relics nearly as often as effects like critical hits, dagger attack power, and so forth. FP restoration on successive attacks is only found on her Pocketwatch relic, so if you're trying to play Duchess optimally as a sorcerer, you might need to gamble a bit with your sovereign sigils and see if you can roll some good effect combos there instead. A lot of her best sorcery builds include either Dark Knight of the Wise or a wacky blend of improved sorceries and magic attack power effects, so those are probably going to be making a lot of repeat appearances when I start talking about the builds. Okay, so I'm using the Spirit Shelter Grail for this first one. This caster-centric build is especially powerful because it just about completely nullifies the need to hunt for Starlight Shards by linking FP restoration to a proactive playstyle. It's really hard to use daggers for melee damage that doesn't involve parries and backstabs, but her alternate dagger moveset allows her to take advantage of successive attack bonuses extremely quickly. Curve swords and twin blades can do this too, and twin blades might actually be slightly better for this because the charged heavies contain lots of individual attacks at once, while also being really easy to restage. So if you're not chasing crits, then there's no reason you shouldn't switch to a twin blade or a curved sword instead. These FP restoration bonuses stack with each other, making the old Pocketwatch and Dark Knight of the Wise one of the most reliable energy crisis solutions available. There's no other relic template that allows for the use of 2 greens, let alone 3, making the Spirit Shelter Grail the only template that can accept the Pocketwatch Wise combo meal. The third relic here can pretty much be anything you want it to be, since the main gimmick with this build here is the quick FP restoration. If you have a god relic on you that restores FP with critical attacks or a certain weapon type, then you should probably just go with that. Maybe throw in the Everjail boost or a magic attack +2 or something, just whatever you feel like it needs. I personally go with the improved Glint Blade or Gravity sorceries because it's a 12% boost, and of all the sorceries in the game, these particular subtypes contain the most spells, meaning it's the most likely you'll land on at any given time, not including merchants or enemy drops. Magic Glint Blade seems to be on just about everything, it feels like, and Gravity Well and Collapsing Stars are both comfortable, straightforward sorceries with very high damage output that can chew up pretty much everything. Carian Sword Sorcery is also optimal because the Carian Slicer is probably her best sorcery, and like I said before with the Crystallian sorceries, Shattering Crystal can be the first spell on 2 different staves, making it twice as likely for you to land on it. But with the merchants selling different staves, I think my advice here, if you really want to take advantage of sorcery subtype effects, is to just know where all the staff locations are, go for the rises, and just hope you get lucky, because you probably will. Like, there's not a lot to choose from. Alright, Chalice time, bitch. I'm using the Chalice for this one. This build I think is just kind of funny, and it's not by any means an optimized relic set, unless maybe you're on Recluse, but I just think the relic that starts you out with 6 Starlight Shards is hilarious, so I'm using it for the video. There's a second green relic you can purchase from the Sigil shop that gives you max FP boost 2 different ways, which is by having at least 3 staves in your inventory by unlocking Rise contraptions, in addition to a 4.5% magic attack power boost. Now, there are 2 ways you can build off of this foundation. You can either stack the magic attack power boosts by including them in your other 2 relic spaces, or you can go for what I'm doing here and slam in the 6 Starlight Shards just to ensure you literally never run out of FP at any point. I don't think it's the most effective way to facilitate an FP dependent build, and unlocking Rise contraptions kinda gives you Starlight Shards anyway since you can just break the crates inside. But if you're queued with a Recluse that wants to get a little silly and break off from the team to go for a Rise, her unlocking that Rise will also give you the max FP bonus. This is a relic effect that all casters should try to shoot for, just guaranteed relic or not. The yellow space in the middle can either go in the direction of stacking a magic attack power boost with the magic attack +2, or a skill cooldown +3, which is a relic effect you should always be thinking about when you're playing Duchess. Each +3 perk to cooldown reduces its cooldown time by 10%, taking the restage from a 12-second cooldown to 10.8 seconds. So for all the builds I've listed out so far, and the ones mentioned later on, I'm not going to repeat it with every breath when I talk about a new build or anything, but prioritizing skill cooldown and magic attack power is sort of just implied for the rest of the video. The basic magic attack power boost isn't that strong, and the +2 honestly isn't even that strong either because it's only 6.5%, but if you can manage to stack a +2 effect for all 3 relics, that is very close to 21% extra magic damage in total, which is massive for Duchess because sorceries and magic damage are kind of a specialty of hers. This setup right here already gets you to 11.2%, plus any improved sorcery subtype bonuses you might have on your third relic. It's incredibly scuffed, and it's only in this video because I wanted to remind people this fat laugh of a relic does exist, but it can pull some decent weight on caster builds if you just don't feel like hunting for starlight shards, or if you want to save your runes for something else. Building around the Duchess's talent for critical attacks feels much easier, at least with Remembrance and Guaranteed relics, just because the game gives you so much to work with, and there are a lot of critical attack buffs and critical-based relic effects the Duchess can take advantage of to a frighteningly effective extent. I still prefer a good sorcery build because I'm a bitch, and that's just consistent damage at range all the time, and that's me, I just like that shit. But critical attacks just feed into so many different playstyles and relic builds with Duchess that listing out all the possibilities and avenues you have for crit builds would easily keep us here for like at least another hour, and that's not a video I'm trying to make if I'm being honest. Alright, it's Chalice time again. Dark Knight of the Baron, Knight of Miasma, and then a third blue relic. Both Miasma relics allow you to spend a decent length of any encounter completely invisible to enemies, further facilitating backstabs and the 38% critical boost from Dark Knight of the Baron. If you're going for a stealth build as Duchess, the Miasma Dark Baron setup is a high value combo meal that McDonald's can't even contend with. It's a comfortable blend of convenience and power that uses status to quickly clean up trash while torquing critical attack power through the roof of your office building against bosses. And since this is a yellow-red relic combo, it can only be accessed through the Duchess's Chalice. As for your third relic, you have some options. I think the most straightforward bonus you can fish for is just more critical attack power. Those can stack with each other just as fine as long as you aren't trying to stack the +1 bonus, and the game even flashes up a big red stop sign like a traffic director telling you this doesn't work. So I think most people know the +1 bonuses do not stack, but the standard critical attack bonus is still 15% and it stacks multiplicatively. So if you have a spare one of those collecting dust, you can just shove this up on in here and enjoy your 4-digit damage backshots. I think with this build specifically, I would avoid using effects that feed into the Miasma relic since you're only really using Frostbite as a means to hide yourself and farm backstabs. The tip of the spear in this setup is very obviously your critical attack, so boosting that as much as you can while also keeping an eye out for other crit-related utilities like boosting stamina regen, restoring FP, things like that. Skill cooldown and skill attack power can both work here as well, since restaging a critical just feels nice and it's easy extra damage. Just use anything with the word critical in its description, honestly. Like, crit builds are so fucking easy to make in this game because of how many different effects are tied to landing them. Just go into the relic filter and look for critical stuff. Pick out whatever looks nice. We're heading out with a nice urn build this time. Duchess Urn, the default Duchess Urn. Dark Knight of the Baron, Knight of the Lord, and any dagger-related relic boost for the third option. This uses the default urn to take advantage of the affinity attack boost to inflict massive critical damage on enemies. Lord plus Baron is an extremely straightforward way to do this, and the remaining blue relic can be any dagger or any critical-related relic effect. You can use the Duchess-specific dagger event reprisal effect to score high successive attack damage. FP restoration on successive attacks is always good. Improved skill power isn't bad here either, but you would prefer it be on a relic with skill cooldown +3, since neither of the guaranteed relics I'm using here facilitate character skill. A really comfortable third I like using here is that effect that charges your ultimate when defeating enemies. You can mop up a small gathering of crabs or demi-humans on your way to a bigger landmark or something and just have your ultimate ready to go. You don't have the frostbite effect from Miasma to hide your character, so I just think plugging in as much charge into your ult as possible is the next best thing. And if you can roll that alongside the effect that ups your attack power when defeating enemies while your ult is active, then you can snowball that into some pretty ridiculous damage. Knight of the Lord is also, in my opinion, one of the game's most goated relics you ever obtain, because the attack bonus given to you upon switching weapons isn't related to affinities in particular. It is a general attack boost that affects everything from bows to spells to ultimates. I think because it's paired with the other effects that it is, a lot of people just assume it works only with infinities, but no, it's a 10% attack bonus for as little work as you could imagine, which is just switching a weapon at any given time. And if you're a caster build with multiple catalysts, then you're already doing that a lot anyways. It is functionally a free winged sword talisman for just playing the fucking game. This one I use the goblet for. Knight of Miasma, crown metal as a yellow and green, and the second yellow can be whatever you want. This is another Miasma relic build that's tailored towards using status to conceal the character to farm for backstabs. You get Knight of Miasma and the crown metal as guarantees, and the additional yellow relic can be used to supplement critical attacks or FP restoration. The idea behind this one is to open every fight with Chilling Mist, let the dagger chain Reprisal inflict extra status on a larger enemy or a boss, and then use the conceal buff that proc gives you to get a backstab on a smaller enemy and just keep the cloak effect going. If your additional yellow contains frost on starting armament, or if you're using the additional yellow for dagger attack power and using Dark Knight of the Miasma as your green, then that can also work. But you can even branch that out into critical attack power or even skill cooldown if you want to double up an attack chain with the regular that can't work. That I just explained like 10 minutes ago why that can't work. Why the fuck didn't I backspace that? You can do it, but you'll look stupid. There you go. now you can leave it in. I don't personally prefer builds like these that rely on status as Duchess, because I feel like it's just a workaround for not having good arcane. But taking advantage of the chain reprisal and then feeding some skill cooldown +3s into it is a great way to consistently deal status and keep yourself hidden even during bigger boss fights. Status builds as Duchess aren't impossible, and they can actually be really fun if you run into the right equipment like a Cold Misericord, but it does tend to need a very specific loadout if you want to get the most out of it. And I've already gaslit myself into thinking I took the wrong medicine this morning because I just recommended the fucking crown metal for some reason. If you're tired of spamming moonbeams and dicing up enough crabs to open up your own seafood bar in Panama, using Knight of Miasma for stealth can be a really fun playstyle. Knight of the Wise also fits wonderfully into the build because it has both poison on starting armament and the Kindred Exaltation effect. So by combining this with Knight of Miasma, you are now inflicting 2 status ailments at once, each with their own separate and stackable attack bonuses if either status gets procced. You can focus on poisoning smaller enemies because as long as the status procs in your vicinity, the attack boost is given to you no matter what, whereas Frostbite already comes with its own 15% defense debuff on top of the attack power boost from Miasma, making it better suited for taking down boss enemies. You can choose to use Everdark Miasma in place of the crown metal here and swap the first yellow out for something else, but I don't personally like doing this because you're sacrificing what's probably the strongest part about the original Miasma setup, which is the Frostbite Exaltation effect. Putting aside the focus on guaranteed relics, it should be pretty straightforward what your priorities are. Stack skill cooldown 3s whenever possible, pay attention to how effects synergize with each other, know what your build is good at and where the weak spots are, and you can put together something pretty ridiculous. Alright, let's talk about the abilities. The Restage ability deals 50% of the damage done to an enemy over the past 3 seconds. This includes status and poise damage. From 0, it refreshes every 12 seconds, and with skill cooldown +3 relic effects, it can be lowered to 10.8, 9.7, and then finally 8.7 seconds with a full 3 stack of the effect. Status procs, Iron Eye marks, critical hits, ultimates, all of those can be restaged. Scripted damage, like Animus revives during Everdark Sentient Pest, cannot be restaged, so please stop doing it. Restaging abilities that do damage, specifically ultimate abilities, are straightforward ways to be contributing to a big fight no matter how complicated the situation is. Restaging the Wilder's ultimate is pretty much to be expected. You don't need to put a lot of thought into it, and it'll almost definitely stance break the receiving party's entire family lineage. Whereas restaging ultimates from the Guardian or Raider tend to be the gameplay equivalent of padding your essay to reach a word count. This is the first layer of the restage optimization iceberg, known as paying basic fucking attention. The second layer involves a situational awareness that you sort of just pick up on after you play the game for a while. I'll give you a few isolated examples here so you can see what I'm talking about. I know I just made fun of players who restage a Guardian ult, but in rare circumstances that might be exactly what the situation needs. If your Guardian ults and brings every surrounding enemy to a sliver of HP, restage that shit and wipe them all out. If your team does just enough damage to bring a boss to near death, but the boss is the Ancestor Spirit and suddenly fucks off into the air and starts vomiting blueberries at you, restage the damage and it'll probably be enough to kill it. If there's an Executor on your team and you notice him getting in a few good hits, but not enough to proc a status, restage it anyways and the extra 50% might just be enough for the proc. Extra helpful if you have Exaltation Talismans or attack power relic effects that activate when a status is applied. Being mindful of your team's coordinated damage is also helpful when executing critical attacks. You might not have a lot of confidence in your critical attack to do good damage because because let's say you're playing as a sorcery build, but what you have done is opened up this huge period of vulnerability that follows a crit, leaving them susceptible to massive damage and status buildup. This is especially true on big bosses like the Magma Worm. So instead of restaging the critical, wait a second or two and give your teammates time to sink in damage of their own, then pull out the Pocketwatch once you've decided it's enough. Once you've started to hone your situational awareness a bit, you'll be getting meaty restages pretty much all the time once you know what to look for. And with that awareness comes an incredibly common split-second decision in which the Duchess is destined to face. Like button prompts and heavy rain kind of decisions. Like you see this shit in your head once you know how to look for it. This is the iceberg's third and final layer, a situation I've taken to calling the Iron Eye Dilemma. So, let's say your Iron Eye has just marked a Deathrite bird, and your Wilder just found a Holy Greatsword earlier and is currently handing him a 3 AM shakedown behind the Taco Bell. But despite your best efforts, the mark doesn't proc. The bird suddenly flies away and starts spamming spears at your team, one mistake snowballs into another, and your team just got wiped. And here you are left thinking to yourself like, fuck, I wonder if the mark would have procced if I had used Restage at some point. How would you use your Restage in this situation? Do you triple team the boss as hard as possible, proc the mark's detonation, and then restage that damage? Or do you restage a large chunk of damage during the triple team to speed up when the mark procs? This is a critical question every Duchess should constantly be thinking about, because there is never a completely correct answer. But mastering this delicate balance and making this decision on the fly is what brings your Restage optimization to a level above the rest. General knowledge of your teammates' builds and abilities also help tremendously in making these split-second decisions. For instance, the Iron Eye's mark ability lasts for exactly 17.5 seconds, or 20 if he has the Relic effect that extends its duration. The Duchess has a default Restage cooldown of 12 seconds. If your Relic loadout comprises triple skill cooldown plus 3s, that shaves your skill's recharge time down to 8.7 seconds. Now, if all of these build checks are met, you can just barely fit 3 separate restages into the Iron Eye's extended 20-second window. You can also do it with the 17.5-second window, but that only leaves a 0.1 second margin of error, and the ability needs at least 3 seconds of time to do its own separate damage anyways, so even if you can do it, it's almost impossible and doesn't really mean anything anyways. An average Duchess main wouldn't know this. A seasoned Duchess main also probably wouldn't know this, not because they don't know the info, but because they wouldn't care enough to deem it necessary to remember. But every so often, that little bit of knowledge could be what saves you the time you need to outrun the storm on your way to the second night boss, or it could defeat the Night Lord just when everyone on your team is out of flasks because RNG decided to completely botch your run. I won't sit here and pretend like any of what I just told you is going to be consistently important, but you know just as well as I do that when that leaked endless mode comes around, everybody gonna be out here looking for an edge, and I just gave you yours. Alright, so now let's talk about the ultimate ability. Finale is the one thing about Duchess's playstyle that doesn't come with an instruction manual, and probably should. Of all the times I was fighting different Night Lords and experimenting with different builds, mixing up relics like I was trying to make a new strain in Schedule 1, it just felt like I was always finding something new that I could do with this. If Restage was a carefully prepared triple layer sandwich, Finale is more like a tossed salad with tons of weird shit you wouldn't expect a salad to have, like fucking potato chips. I don't know. Is this funny? It's not a bad ultimate at all. You just need to know how to use it. If you're a no bullshit Duchess, you can use Finale with the intent to just use a boss's unawareness to set up a high damage team attack that you can then restage. It's easy, it makes sense, and it is literally the reason to use your ultimate. But it's a huge bonus for you to know all the little standout utilities, boss attacks it can counter, and very niche but very helpful advantages your team just didn't know they needed. The following is a list of all the weird shit you can do with Finale, ordered from least to most ridiculous. Coordinate a team attack. Wipe enemy aggro to revive downed teammates. Use a relic build that gives you 15% more damage with each defeated enemy, and then take out your angst on a colony of crabs. Use the ult as a pseudo damage buff, because enemies unaware of your presence also take additional damage. Iframe through a massive AoE attack, because you're a greedy bitch and want to get in as many hits as possible. Give yourself and your team infinite stamina, because if enemies aren't aware of you, then you are not in combat, and therefore, do not consume stamina. Cancel Everdark Fulgor's tracking during his arrow nuke, or Everdark Noster's tracking during his shitty fireworks show. This is not at all to say this ultimate is one of the better ones out of the 8 you can choose from. If I were stranded on an island and could only use one ultimate, I would probably use like the Raider ult, I guess, so I could heighten my elevation and like call for help better. It's not that good, is what I'm trying to say. It's not good. The whole reason for me listing out all the random bullshit you can do with Finale is because I know it's not that good. There is no iceberg here to dig into. It's just a desert with like 7 or 8 cool cacti trees growing in it somewhere, and all I did was point at him and say, hey, look at that shit. That's pretty cool, huh? Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, so I think that's like half of what I would consider to be a comprehensive guide. I think the critical section could be expanded to at least twice the length that it was, because I still feel like there's just so much room to cover other effects, like criticals charging your ult. But I feel pretty confident in this one, so I'm just gonna call this one done and peruse the comments for additional good advice. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. There's no more video. Bye.
Satisfied?